Started on the stuff today, I realized that I accidentally skipped over something yesterday, and I wanted to circle back to it real quick so that we know how this stuff works a little bit better. We didn't talk about conditionals yesterday, right? So let's touch on that really quickly in the sense of when we're talking about assignment and actually checking equality. That's just something I wanted to touch on so that we all have a pretty good sense of it. So let's create, and let me run this one more time here. Okay, so what was that? Everyone okay? All right, let's just set up a basic conditional, okay? So I'm gonna create a variable, just create a number, var my age, and we'll just set that equal to 60 for now. All right. Now I want to set up a basic conditional to see if I am able to go to a bar and buy a drink, something like that, right? So what might that look like? Okay. Greater than or equal to 21. Let's console.log I can drink. All right. What else do I want to check? So maybe I also want to have a check senior citizen or something like that, right? Is that 55? Yeah, senior discount. Okay. Let's say if my age greater than or equal to 55, console.log I can get discounts. Yeah. Stick with that. Okay. So what are we expecting this to log right now? Both of these guys, right? Because I need both requirements. Okay, and let's just save that and make sure that we're seeing this somewhere up there, right? I can drink, I can get discounts. Okay, cool. Maybe I want to check something else. So maybe we also want to check if I'm a centenarian. Does anyone know what that is? If I'm 100 years old, right? If I'm at least 100. So I might say something like if my age greater than or equal to 100, console.log I am a centenarian. Oops. Okay. Is that going to be logged in this case? No. Cool. All right. So let's see if we can chain these guys together. So right now, all of these things are mutually exclusive, right? I'm checking them one by one, and the checking has no connection to one another. What if I wanted them to be connected? So in other words, I can only print out one of these guys. What do we need to introduce then? So the way that things are structured right now, a person's age, my age specifically, could trigger every single one of these, right? So I might print out 3 statements. What if I want to limit it to, I only want to print one of these guys? Maximum print one of these guys, so I can't possibly have all of these things. What do we need to introduce here? Yeah, nesting is a possibility, but I was thinking else if, right? So if we introduce else if, we will prevent ourselves from actually checking other conditions once we've met something that's actually true, right? So if we're going to do it in an else if fashion, I'm thinking let's go from the largest number and go down from there. So let's say if my age greater than or equal to 100, and I'm just going to bring this down because I'm lazy. Okay, then we'll do that. Now I'm going to say else if this, right? Now we're gonna bring in this whole block of code, and I'll actually just bring that in. Okay. And then I'm going to check the I can drink portion. So let's bring that down as well. Whoops, I doubled up on my ifs. Okay. Finally, let's have a sort of catch-all here where if none of these guys are triggered, what do we want to log? I'm really young, something like that. Sucks to be me. I kind of like that. And then we'll put like a sad face. Very sad. All right. Okay, cool. So let's evaluate what's going to happen now. My age is 60. We're going to first run this check here, right? And what's that going to evaluate to? So this is going to evaluate to false, which means that we're going to jump over this, right? We're not going to have to log on the secondary. Now we're going to check this, else if my age is greater than or equal to 55, what's that going to evaluate to? True, which means that I'm then going to jump inside here and log this out, right? So if I've hit a true condition, what happens at this point? Am I even going to check this or get inside the else block? No. Right? So I've already hit true, and I'm basically done with this whole set of if and else ifs and else. All right, so let's test it out. Save this and see what we printed here. I can get discounts, so that's cool. So let's change our age somewhere inside here. Let's change it to 30. So if I change it to 30, what are we expecting it to print now? I can drink, right? So what's going to happen is we're going to check this. We're definitely not a centenarian, right? Skip down to this. We can't get discounts because we're under 55, right? And we do get into this because we're greater than 41. Okay, save it. See what we got here. I can drink. Let's test one more. So if I'm 15, sucks to be me, right? Sucks to be me. Okay. Now, finally, that's mostly what I wanted to show you guys, but what if we wanted to sort of check equality between a couple different numbers? So I'll just put down here var num1 equals 5, okay? And then we'll say var num2 equals the string 5, okay? Now, are we expecting these guys to be equal to one another? No. All right, because one of them is a string and one of them is a number, right? Well, let's see what JavaScript has to say about that. So I'll say console log does 5 equal the string 5? Question mark. Okay, and then over here we're going to say num1 double equals num2. Okay? How many people think that this is going to log true? One person, and then he unraised his hand. 2 people. All right? Hands up high. Be proud of yourselves. Do you feel like this is going to log true? 2 people. All right. How many people think it's going to be false? It's got to be everyone else, right? All right. Let's test it out. Save it. Uh-oh. Woo! What happened? What happens? Nick?
JavaScript automatically uses the string.
So we have this thing called implicit conversion, which means that JavaScript is trying to make these 2 types, which are different right now, into the same type. Only that way can it compare them. Okay, so once it's converted them to the same type, it then determines, okay, they are the same. That's what double equals involves. Double equals allows for this thing called implicit conversion. Have any of you guys seen triple equals? Okay, so when we say triple equals, this is something a little different. With triple equals, we're saying not only do these have to be the same value, they also have to be the same type. So what would we expect this to log at this point? False, because they are indeed different types, right? And let's save that and test it. Okay, now we're getting false. Question, Griffin?
I've been using that when I'm comparing something that's 0, but where else would you generally see triple equals being used?
You can generally use it in most situations. I haven't come across a lot of situations where you even want to use double equals. So triple equals kind of gives you that extra safety in the sense that, these really are exactly the same, right? There's some interesting cases too, like I can console log, let's say, 2 empty objects, or, whoops, I want to do triple equals inside of these guys. What are we expecting that to console log? Yeah, I'm not going to give you a whole bunch of trick questions, but this one's kind of interesting. Are they, so here's what JavaScript's doing. It's actually checking in memory to see if they are the exact same object. Are they? No, they're not, right? These are, even though they have the same empty set of keys and values, they're not actually held in the same spot of memory for JavaScript. So we'd expect that to be false as well. And sure enough, it is false here. Okay. Same thing if I did, if I was checking to see are 2 arrays equal, 2 empty arrays, or if 2 arrays have the exact same values in them. They're not the same identity as far as JavaScript is concerned. Okay? So that's where triple equals comes into play. If I'm checking identity of the exact same object, then I would expect that to return true, right? Otherwise false. So generally, you guys are probably going to want to use triple equals in most cases. Yeah. All right. Any questions about that? Conditionals and equality. Now, one thing I just want to point out again, because we saw this a little bit in algos, is that make sure that when you are trying to check equality, you use at least 2 equal sign, right? Signs. If we use 1 equal sign, what are we doing? We're assigning. We're assigning, not actually checking equality. Okay, cool. Great. So let's move on. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to create a basic document here, an HTML document. And the reason why we're doing this is because we want to see how can we interact with JavaScript in the browser. Okay. So if I want to create some basic HTML page, drop in some boilerplate, right? And then down here, I'm going to create a script tag. So let's just set that up down here. This is where we're going to write our JavaScript. And sometimes to make sure everything's working, we might want to just log something out. So I'll say console.log, oops, is this working? Okay, and now let's open this up in the, oops. Okay, let me open this file. Dojo, stacks, where are you? Stacks, web fundamentals, lectures. And this is our intro. Okay, so if I open up my my developer tools here, we see that I've indeed got my console right here. So everything's working. That's good. Now, in the browser, in terms of our JavaScript, we have this thing called the document object model. Has anyone heard of this yet? Griffin, you probably have. Yeah, it has everything to do with that.
Is that, so I was asking Brenna about this earlier. So I know you can put the script tag at the bottom, but also just like a CSS page, you can link a JavaScript and an HTML page together. That way you can take all that's what's within the script and put it in the JavaScript file. So is this what helps link the two pages together?
No, it's not really connected to that specifically, but it allows our code to actually interact with the HTML that's on our page. Okay. All right, so let's create something super basic in our HTML. Let's just create an H1 here, and we'll say hello world. Okay, I'm going to give this H1 an ID. So we'll say my H1. Okay. Now inside my script, does anybody know how I can grab a reference to this H1 tag? Because I'm going to want to do something with it. I'm going to want to change its background just for fun. Yes.
I was going to say how to access the script and click on it and hide it. And that's for changing the background.
Okay.
So you want me to say or?
So yeah, how can we actually just get a reference to this? So I want to create a variable. I'll just say down here var my H1, and then I'm going to set that equal to something, right?
Once you put the dollar sign and then in parentheses.
We're not doing jQuery just yet. Yeah. Just for straight JavaScript. Does anybody know how I can grab? Well, I can. Okay, so let's say I just go like this. Is that gonna actually get a reference to this element right here? Now I'm just setting it to a string, right? So that's not. It's not gonna do it. Yes, thanks. Is which one href? You mean like would I change this to href? No. Now, here's how we can grab a reference to it. I'll show you guys. We're going to be referencing this thing called the document, okay? And we'll kind of talk about what that is in a second, but I'm going to say get element by ID, okay? And the ID that we're looking for is my H1. Okay? So now if I console.log this out, let's see what that looks like. So go back to the browser, refresh this, and you'll see that it actually printed out the HTML element. Shows me everything, right? Excellent. If I wanted to see some of the JavaScript properties of this element, I can use a different function here called console.dir. Okay. Now we see it looks like we've got some kind of a JavaScript object here, and I can open this up and see what's inside it, right? So I've got all kinds of different properties. So this is kind of interesting. Notice here it tells me what the inner text is, right? The inner text is hello world. What else do I have in here? Seems like I've got all these little events as well, too, right? Like on drag, on key down, on load, all sorts of things. So let's think about what this is. What this is essentially a JavaScript way of referencing that specific element, showing us all the different properties that are available on it. So some of the properties are just things that we can read, values like inner text, for instance, we can read that. We can also change it though. Okay? So let's see how we could do that. So if I go back to my JavaScript here, we console logged it out. Let me comment that out. And down here, I'm going to say my h1 dot inner text, oops, equals this has been changed. Okay, so let's refresh that. Wow, look at that, right? It's actually giving us programmatic access to all the different elements on our page. That's pretty cool. Another thing that we can log out or just take a look at is this document itself. So let's go up here. I'm going to say console.log document. Refresh the page. So we've got this document object here. And notice that it just looks exactly like my HTML. I can open up these elements. I can look and see what's inside them, right? Inside my body, I've got all this stuff. That's pretty cool. By the same token, if I want to use the console.dir, it should give me the actual JavaScript object so that I can really see all the properties and all of the functions that are available on it. So now we've got this JavaScript object, right? And it's telling us what the location is, the URL, document URI, all this kind of stuff. Wow, it's even giving me the last modified property there, right? All kinds of stuff in here. Okay. So before we get into playing with the this DOM a little bit more, let's talk about what it is. So the document object model is essentially a way that we can model what's happening in our HTML using JavaScript. And I want you guys to kind of think of it as if it's a folder structure. Okay. So let's sort of write something out here in another. Just going to create a new file here. Let's say I've got this thing called a document. Okay. What are the things that fall below the document? So the document is essentially everything inside of our HTML tags. So what are the elements that are inside our HTML tags? We've got our head and our body. Oops. Okay. So then inside the head, what kinds of things do we typically have? Yeah, so we've got some meta tags. Maybe we've got a bunch of them, right? Because sometimes there are different types of meta tags that we can use. Especially if we're trying to do search engine optimization or something like that. Cool. What else do we see inside the head? We see the title, right? Excellent. Yeah. Perfect. Okay. We might also see some script tags. That could happen as well. So what we want to talk about is what is the relationship between, say, this meta tag and this title? They're siblings because they sit at the same level and they have the same parent. What's their parent? The head tag, right? What's the head's parent? The document. Awesome. Perfect. All right, so these are the things on the page that we can't see, right? Those are inside the head element. What about the things that we can see? So let's go down inside the body, and let's say we create a few different elements. So we'll have a main, we'll have a div, or actually, I'm sorry, let's make this the header. We're trying to use some semantic HTML tags here. Main, and then maybe we'll have a footer down here, right? Cool. So all of these elements right here have the same parent, right? What is the parent? The body. Down here, my header could have some different things inside it, right? Maybe it's got an h1 tag. Oops. Yeah, maybe a nav. That's a good idea. Okay, maybe my main tag has some divs inside of it, right? Divs. And then maybe inside those divs I have what? Maybe some p tags. images, yeah, sure, img, something like that, and so on and so forth. So you guys can see what this is essentially like a tree structure. At the top of the tree, we have what? The document. And that's everything that's inside those HTML tags, right? In the next level down, we've got the head section and the body section. And then we keep trickling down. Okay. So when I was using this function here, getElementById, this is literally scanning the entire document, right? Scanning the entire document for that particular ID. Okay. All right, so let's say that we wanted to add some interactivity to our page. So right now, all we're doing is we're loading it up, and then we're very quickly changing the text. What if I wanted to add a button that, when clicked, would say change the background of that H1 tab? Let's do that. So let's create a button up here. Okay, and I'll just put click me there because I'm excited about it. And then let's give this button an ID. So we'll say my BTN. Now what I want to do is I want to react to that button being clicked. So first, if I'm going to react to it, I essentially need to get a reference to it in my JavaScript, right? So how can we do that? So set a variable, right? So let's just say var my BTN equals element by ID. Okay, and then this would be my BTN. Okay, so now I have a reference to this, and of course, if I console.dir my button, I should indeed see this button right here, right? Cool. All right. There's one other way that you guys, or actually there are multiple ways that you can grab specific elements from this DOM, from the document object model. One of them is a little bit newer. It's called Query Selector. Okay, so I can say Query Selector, and then if I know this is an ID, I would put this pound symbol inside here. Okay. This is actually a little bit more similar to how jQuery works. Yes, question.
So,
Yeah, so the reason why we're using IDs here in this case is because it's very easy to target a specific element, right? If I was targeting things by class, which is also possible, I then might need to do some digging around. So let's just say, let me just change this real quick. Let's say var buttons. Okay, and then I said document.query selector all. Then I can just put in button tag here. And let's see what that looks like. Buttons. Okay, so now we have this thing called a node list, which potentially has more than one item in it. See how it kind of looks like an array there? It's not exactly an array, but it does have some similarities to it. It has a length property as well. So if I wanted to see all the buttons, I could loop through them using this. Okay, but if I'm only trying to target one specific element, then I'm probably going to use an ID on it. Okay, that doesn't mean that you have to use the ID in terms of your CSS though, right? We could still use a class or something like that if we wanted it to be a little bit more flexible. All right, so let me comment this out because now we have a reference to our button, so that's cool. Now what I want to do is I want to add what's called an event listener to this button. So I want to listen for a specific event, and the event that I'm listening for in this case is going to be a click event. Okay, so let's say my button dot add event listener. Okay. Now I'm opening up a set of parentheses. What does this mean, guys? I'm invoking this function, right? Invoking the add event listener function. So what we need to pass this function is going to be a couple things. I'm going to need to pass the event that I'm listening for. So I'm listening for a click. And then the second thing that I'm going to need to pass is what's called a callback function. Okay? Has anyone heard of callback functions before? No. Okay. So what a callback function is, essentially, is it's a function that I'm going to allow my program to run on my behalf. I'm not going to call this function directly. I'm going to allow this click event to essentially trigger my function for me. Okay? So I'm going to create a function right in line here, and this is probably going to look a little strange to you guys. But that's okay. We'll get used to it. All right, inside this function, what I want to do is I want to change the background of my h1 tag. So let's say my h1 dot style dot background, and I'm going to put color here. You don't have to, but I'm just going to do it to show you guys when we're dealing with JavaScript. This is no longer hyphenated, right? Background color, if you're doing that in CSS, it would just be hyphen color and the C would be lowercase. Now it's going to be capitalized. Okay. So let's just change it to something really obvious. We'll say equals purple green. Okay, fine. You got it. All right, now let's test this out and see if it's working. So if I refresh this, click the button, boom. Okay, now to make this a little bit more readable, I'm going to establish my function up here so that it's a little more clear what's going on. So I'm going to say function my callback takes in nothing, and then all it does is it just makes this change right here, right? And then instead of defining this function in line like this, I'm just simply going to pass it in. Does anybody know why I'm not going like that? Anyone explain why I didn't want to add those parens at the end of that? Yeah, so let's ask ourselves, if I do it like this, what happens? When I call this function with these arguments, this function is being called, right? Is that when I want to call it, though? Do I want to call it when the page is first loaded? No. So, and what would happen, what does this callback function return, by the way? Stuff. Does it return anything? If we don't have an explicit return value from a function, does anyone know what it returns? Undefined. So this function is going to return undefined. If I call it right here, now we're saying, hey, our callback function is undefined, which means that when we click the button, we're going to try to call an undefined as a function. What do you think that's going to be? Throw an error. So if I go into my browser here, I saved that for us, refresh it. You see how the background has already changed? Now what happens when I click on the button? Okay. Why is that not throwing an error though? Because my callback actually returned undefined. So shouldn't it be trying to call a function that is undefined? know why that's not happening. Anyway, let me take off the parens here. Refresh it, make sure it's working as expected. Okay, so when I click on it, it is indeed changing the background. Okay. All right, I want somebody to take me from 22 through 26 in the code.
Who's got this one? Who wants to explain this? Drew.
Okay, so we have a function called myCallback.
Good.
We run that function.
And this callback takes in what?
Oh, it takes in nothing.
That's no parameters. Okay.
And then we're referring to the h1 tag.
Good.
So my h1.style.background is going to set it to green.
Okay.
So when we do the my button, we add an event listener, we're listening for the click.
Good.
And because we already defined the function at the front end, we can just add the function name myCallback.
Yeah.
That way when we run it and we click it, it turns to green.
So what's interesting about this is that, wow, you see how we're able to actually pass a function into another function when I call it? Pretty cool, right? I can pass around functions as if they're just any other data type.
Okay, so sometimes you'll hear this referred to as, in JavaScript, functions are first-class citizens. They're just like any other data type. Okay. All right, any questions about what we did here? Seems pretty good? Okay, cool. So now we're going to bring in this thing called Jquery. Okay. And let's just talk about what Jquery is real quick before we introduce it. Jquery is essentially just a library of code that is written in JavaScript that allows you to write JavaScript in a maybe slightly more succinct way. Now I want to preface it by saying that Jquery's popularity has fallen greatly in recent years. So it's not what it once was. It used to be kind of everyone would instantly reach for Jquery when they were starting a project. Now not as much because you've got frameworks like React, Vue, Angular that they're a little bit more comprehensive in how they manage this thing called DOM. But you might still see some legacy code bases that are using Jquery in them, so in that sense, we're still going to introduce it and just show it to you guys. So if you want to use it in your project, or in any project really, you can just look up hosted libraries and Jquery. Okay, Jquery over here. And you guys can grab the 3.x snippet up here. Okay, so let's drop this in the head of our document. All right. So now I've got access to this Jquery. Let's console log out something here. So up in my script tag, I'm going to say console.log. Oops. The dollar symbol. Did I define a dollar symbol anywhere in my code? So where am I getting that from? Oops. From this library, exactly. Okay, let's go in here, refresh our document here. Okay, and we see that we've got this function.
So what the dollar symbol actually is a function. And I can use it
to wrap different things. So for instance, if I want to grab that h1 tag again, using Jquery to give it sort of some special powers, I can say console.log and I'll say dollar symbol dot my h1. Oh yeah, pound, sorry, whoa. Did I say pound and type otherwise? I did, huh? All right. So now we're still getting that element, but now it sort of has some special powers. So if I wanted to react to that thing being clicked on, for instance, let's see how we could do that. So we could say dollar pound my btn. So if we're still trying to handle button clicks, right? Then I can just say .click. Okay.
So this is very similar. I mean, it's almost the exact same as I'm saying something like, let's add an event listener to my ETN. The event listener that we're adding is just going to be a click event, right?
So inside, when I add this, I need to actually give it a function. So the function could potentially take in the event itself if I wanted. And I'm just going to console log the event so that we can see it. Okay. And then maybe inside there I still want to change that background color because I sort of like doing that, right? Now how would I grab that same element in my
H1 using jQuery. $, right?
So this is basically doing the same thing as document.getElementById. So we'll say $symbol, and then we'll say pound my H1. Okay, and I should still be able to do what we were doing. So in this case, I'm going to say .attr, and this stands for attribute in jQuery. So it's like I'm changing some specific attribute, right? I want to change the style attribute to have a background of purple. Okay, so let's try this. Let's go in here, refresh this. Okay, and it did do that for me.
So this is just, what I want to stress here is that this is just another way to kind of accomplish the same things, right? So jQuery is wrapping JavaScript and giving it some extra functionality where that $symbol allows me to grab any specific element that I want. Okay? So let's read through this guy here. Sean, 16 through 19.
Oh, where we're logging out the event?
Yeah. So the event itself is going to be what? It's going to be the actual click event. Okay. So it's like the thing that happened.
And it's targeting the mileage one and the style attribute will change the background to purple.
Right.
That's going to be
Good. Exactly. So when this thing is clicked, that's what's going to happen. Excellent.
Any questions about this? Okay, so if everyone feels pretty good about this, let's try something. What I want to do is I want to add 3 images to our page. With those 3 images, I want us to basically be able to click on an image and have it disappear. Okay.
So let's give that a try. Let's find some images first. I'm thinking, like, let's just go with some country logos. So images, country logos. Maybe I want to set this as size. Let's do icon. Why am I getting Internet Explorer? Yeah, maybe that would be better. Country flag. Oh, that's a little better, right? Okay, so I can get the American flag. Copy the link address, or we'll copy image address. Okay, And I'm going to create sort of a row of images here. So we'll say image source is, oh my gosh. It's not exactly what I wanted. Open image in new tab, right? Whoa, okay. Why am I getting these long data image addresses? Good grief. Yeah. I mean, I guess this can work theoretically, right? So we'll say USA. Yeah, that's just one image right there. Okay. Very good. Yeah. Bitly, huh? Well, that's a URL shortener though. But I was just trying to get the actual address of the image. And it seems like it's actually giving me the code of the image, not the image itself, right? So if I copy the link address, let's try this. So img source is that. Oh, that's a little shorter. Wow. Okay. And then this is Indonesia, right? Okay, I need one more. What should we get? Macedonia? Okay. Copy image address. Google's getting crazy again. Doing it. Alright, let's see if we're getting... What's wrong with Indonesia? Dang it. Indonesia I thought was good. So copy image address, right? Oh man. This is very painful. Okay. Oh yeah, let's fold this, right? Okay, but I found where it is, so it's right here. Okay, that should work, because it looks nice and long. Hey, boom. Alright, cool. So let's get rid of our button, because we don't really need that, right? Christ. Alright, let me go to the top of this. Let's just comment that out. Alright, now what we want to do is we want to add essentially a click right, to all images. So if an image is clicked on, then what we want to do is we want to make it disappear. Alright, so let me just comment out that. So how can I target all images? What's that? Well, I could just target them as elements, right? Because I haven't really given them a class. But yeah, that could work if I was trying to be a little bit more specific. So here I'm saying, let's just target all images, right? And then I'm going to add a click handler. Inside that, what do I want to do? Function. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to log out something that may come in handy for us, because I want to make that specific image disappear. So I'm going to say $this. Okay. So let's refresh the page and let's click on some of these images. Seems like that's giving me a reference to this specific image, right? Cool, so that's pretty good. If I wanted to see what the source was, let's do that. Let's say attr and then src. Okay, so that attr function is specific to jQuery, and it's let's read this specific attribute if I'm not passing two arguments. If I'm passing 2 arguments, that means I'm going to set that attribute, right? So let's refresh it. Let's click again. Wow, it's telling me the source of the image, right? So you guys can see how this is actually, or if I wanted to see what my alt was, maybe I should do that. That would be a little better. All right, let's click on that. I clicked on USA, right? Here it's saying Macedonia. Here it's saying Indonesia. Okay, fair enough. Cool. So how can I make this, the visibility disappear? Or not the visibility disappear. How can I disappear the image? Yeah, I could do that, in which case it would sort of disappear in place and nothing else would slide in to take its place, right? Griffin?
You use one of the built-in functions from the Jquery library to
Yeah, I could do that. Actually, that would be pretty handy. So let's say
do the dollar sign with
this, right?
in there,
Hide.
and that will just hide it completely since you don't want to hide it for liberation or the speed of it. Once you click on it, it hides it. And then you just save that.
Yeah, let's try that. Whew. Magic. Crazy, right? Okay. If I wanted to use a little more elbow grease and not just let jQuery do the work for me, what else could I do? I could say this, which would be the actual JavaScript node. And then I could say style.display and then set that equal to none, right? This should also work. Same thing. Okay, now notice if I inspect the DOM and I look at these guys, you see how each one now has a display set to one in the style? Because we were directly altering the style attribute. And that essentially works the exact same way as jQuery's hide. So if I change back to what we had before, so again, $this.hide, oops. It's doing the exact same thing, right? It's adding that display of none inside the style attribute. Yes?
What is this referring to? Like that is this just referring to the image?
It's referring to the actual element that triggered that event, right? It triggered that click. Griffin?
I was going to ask the same thing. I was just kind of thinking about it. You would still be able to, instead of putting this, can you still put whatever the IDs instead of this? Can we go back to it?
Yeah, let's go back to the code. So how are you?
Instead of putting $this.hide, can you still put image? Can they be? I know. Are they interchangeable?
Well, if I put image, so let's say inside here I want to select image again. Am I going to know which image I'm selecting? Because now, if I say dollar and then inside I'm saying img, that means I'm selecting all the image elements on the page. But I only want to select this one that was clicked on. That's the one that I want to display.
But let's just say assuming that all of the selected images have a class.
Okay.
Or an ID. And instead of being image, let's say there's 3 images on the page that have picture as the ID name, or PIC as the ID name. Instead of it being image and this, can it be pic and pic if they have the same ID name? So
do not use the same ID more than once. First of all. You mean if I was adding a click to some ID that had been included, is what you're saying? Yeah. Oh. I don't know. That would be something to experiment with. But really just always avoid using the same ID.
Yeah. But since you're within this function right now, so if you always put this, the dollar sign then this, it knows what it's
Yeah, so our reference to this is because we're inside of our callback function. So that's giving us a reference to the image that was clicked on. Okay. And then, of course, by using the dollar symbol in front of it, we get this special jQuery method called hide. We wouldn't have that if we were just using this without the dollar. Yes.
So what's a JavaScript way of hiding the image? Because like we just got the
It's that
Right here.
oh, just like
Yeah.
okay.
Exactly.
And then hide is just from the library of jQuery that has that.
It's just got that built-in function for us. Yeah, so if you guys want to poke around on the see what's available in jQuery, you can just go to jquery.com and then the documentation. Yeah. Oh yeah, API documentation. So you can see we have all these different things, right? Add class, well, all kinds of stuff.
If you click on it, it shows you like what parameters you can put through and how to use each one.
Yeah, so like if we were looking into hide, we can click on it, and it'll tell us, as you can see, it doesn't actually, well, it takes in some optional durations here.
So the default is saying basically 400 milliseconds is how fast that hides. So 400 milliseconds. But you could change that. You can make it take a little bit longer if you wanted hide to be like take a full second. You just pass in 1,000 for 1,000 milliseconds.
Okay, and then there's also a corresponding show function as well. So if you want to bring something back that's already been hidden, just leverage this function, right? Dot show. Okay, cool. Any other questions? I think I'm going to stop the video.